The space above the blue planet was quiet, but not empty. The silence was broken by the low hum of thousands of engines. The Valdorian Empire had arrived. Their ships were huge, made of shining gold metal that reflected the light of the distant sun. They filled the space around Earth like a heavy wall of steel. High Marshal Vax stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Iron Will. He was a tall creature with purple skin and eyes that burned like fire. He wore heavy armor that was decorated with medals from past wars. He looked at the large screen in front of him. It showed the small, blue planet. He smiled. His sharp teeth showed. He was waiting for the humans to fight back. He wanted a glorious battle. He wanted to see their fleets rise from the planet to meet his ships in the stars. He wanted to crush them and show the power of the Empire. "Send the signal," Vax ordered. His voice was deep and loud. "Tell them to surrender or die. We are ready for their warships." The communication officer did as he was told. A message was sent to Earth. "Surrender now, or we will destroy your cities." Vax waited. He expected to see Earth's weapons activate. He expected to see missiles flying toward his fleet. But there was nothing. The planet was silent. The humans did not send a message back. They did not send ships. Vax frowned. This was boring. He looked at his commanders. "Are their sensors broken? Do they not see us?" "Maybe they are afraid," one commander said with a laugh. "Maybe they are hiding." Suddenly, a small light flashed on the sensor screen. It was not a fleet. It was just one small object. It was moving very fast from the planet toward the Valdorian ships. It was black and tiny. "Identify it," Vax commanded. "It is a small shuttle, High Marshal," the officer said. "It has no weapons. It is moving toward the rear of your ship." Vax laughed loudly. The sound echoed in the large bridge. "A shuttle, they send a shuttle, they must be coming to beg for mercy. Let them dock. I will meet their leader and laugh in his face." He did not know that this was not a diplomatic mission. Earth did not send soldiers to fight a loud war. Earth sent something different. They sent people who were built for the dark. On the dark side of the huge ship, the small shuttle landed silently in a maintenance airlock. It was a perfect fit, as if they knew exactly where to go. The door of the shuttle opened, and two figures stepped out into the shadows. The first one was a man named Jin. He was not tall, but he moved with a calm confidence. He wore a suit that was not made of hard metal. It was made of a special black material that seemed to drink the light. If he stood in a shadow, you could not see him at all. His face was covered by a mask, leaving only his eyes visible. They were focused and cold. The second one was a woman named Rhea. She was smaller and moved like smoke. Her suit was the same as Jin's. She carried a small bag on her back. She did not walk with heavy steps, she almost floated. They did not speak. They did not need to. They had trained for this for years. They were not soldiers who shouted orders. They were tools of silence. Inside the ship, the hallways were bright. The lights were very strong, and alarms were not ringing because the sensors thought the shuttle was friendly. Valdorian guards walked past the airlock. They were big, wearing heavy red armor. They carried large energy rifles. Their metal boots hit the floor with a loud clank, clank, clank. Jin and Rhea waited in the shadows of the airlock until the guards passed. Then, they moved. Jin placed a small device on the electronic lock of the inner door. Rhea looked at her wrist computer. A few seconds later, the door opened without a sound. They slipped into the ship. The contrast was strange. The Valdarians liked big halls and loud noises. Jin and Rhea were the opposite. They stuck to the walls, moving in the blind spots of the security cameras. They climbed up vertical shafts using only their hands and feet, moving like spiders. At one point, a group of maintenance aliens walked toward them. There was nowhere to hide. Jin did not panic. He pulled a small, black ball from his belt and threw it on the floor. It burst into a cloud of thick black smoke. The aliens coughed and stopped, confused. Before they could call for help, Jin and Rhea were past them, disappearing into a ventilation duct. They moved through the ducts for a long time. They were heading for the most important place, the bridge. Vax was there. They did not need to blow up the ship. They just needed to send a message. They are loud, Rhea thought. She could hear the heartbeat of the ship. The engines rumbled, and the aliens talked loudly to each other. They had no discipline. They felt safe here. They thought no enemy could touch them. Jin checked his scanner. We are above the bridge now, he whispered into his microphone. His voice was so quiet that only Rhea could hear it. Below them, through the metal grates of the ventilation system, they could see the bridge. It was full of busy aliens. And in the middle, sitting on a large throne-like chair, was High Marshal Vax. He was looking at the main screen, waiting for Earth to answer. The humans are cowards, Vax said to his crew. They ignore us. Maybe we should just fire and destroy their moon to get their attention. The crew laughed. It was a happy, arrogant sound. They felt like gods. They did not know that death was hanging right above their heads. Jin looked at Rhea and nodded. It was time. Rhea took out a small device and placed it on the vent cover. It cut a perfect circle in the metal without making a single spark. She gently lifted the cover away. Now, they had a clear view of the officers below. Jin took a small tube from his belt. It was a silent blowgun. Rhea did the same. They aimed for the necks of the officers who were standing closest to Vax. Whoosh, a tiny dart, too small to see, flew out of Jin's tube. It hit the neck of the alien standing at the navigation console. The alien didn't even feel it. He just stopped moving. 3 seconds later, his eyes rolled back, and he fell to the floor. Rhea fired 2 darts in quick succession. 2 more officers dropped silently. One by one, the bridge crew fell. It was like a strange dance. They were talking 1 second, and lying on the floor the next. The aliens working at the back of the room did not notice yet. The only person left sitting was Vax. Vax was looking at his screen, angry. Why is there no response? He shouted. Then, a small notification appeared on his personal screen, right in front of his eyes. It was a text message. It was not in an alien language. It was in a language he knew, a language the humans called English. It simply said, "Check your chair." Vax froze. He spun his chair around to look at his crew. The laughter was gone. The room was deadly silent. Every single officer, captain, and guard was lying on the floor. Some were shaking, but most were still. He was alone. He stood up, his hand going to his sword. "Who is there?" he roared. "Show yourselves. Fight me like a warrior." He looked up at the ceiling. The ventilation grate was open. But there was no one there. He looked at the door. It was closed. Vax looked back at his screen. Another message appeared. It was the last thing he needed to see. "You wanted a war. We didn't send soldiers. We sent the dark. The communication screen on the main wall flickered. The image of the planet was replaced by a symbol. It was not a flag of a country. It was a simple, black image of a human eye. Vax looked around the empty bridge again. The silence was louder than any explosion he had ever heard. The realization hit him hard. They had been inside his most protected ship. They had killed his best men without firing a single shot. And now, they were gone. He looked down at his hands. They were shaking. For the first time in his life, High Marshal Vax did not feel like a conqueror. He felt like prey. The silence on the bridge of the Iron Will did not last long. High Marshal Vax was shaking with a mix of anger and fear. He looked at the bodies of his officers on the floor. He looked at the empty ventilation shaft above his head. He felt like a fool. He had prepared for a great battle with lasers and explosions. Instead, he had been humiliated by shadows. Cowardice! Vax screamed. His voice was so loud that the few remaining tech crew members jumped. They do not fight like warriors. They hide in the dark like rats. He slammed his fist onto the arm of his chair. The metal bent. He needed to hit back. He needed to show the humans that the Empire was not afraid of the dark. He turned to his tactical officer. "Prepare the ground troops," Vax ordered. "Send a battalion to the human outpost on the moon. We will take it over. We will capture their base. If they want to hide, we will destroy their hiding places until they come out to fight." The Valdorian fleet moved quickly. Huge transport ships broke away from the main group and descended toward the gray surface of the moon. The humans had a small research base there. It was a quiet place, mostly for science and storage. The Valdorians did not care about science. They saw it as a target. On the dusty, gray surface of the moon, the transport ships landed. Their engines kicked up huge clouds of gray dust. The ramps lowered, and hundreds of Valdorian soldiers marched out. They wore heavy, red armor that was designed to survive in space. They carried large rifles that fired green plasma. The commander of this ground force was a huge alien named Krull. He was even bigger than Vax. He held a large axe in one hand and a pistol in the other. He looked at the small human base. It was quiet. There were no lights on the outside. No missiles fired at them. "Set up the perimeter," Krull ordered. "Put up the floodlights. Let us see if these little humans try to sneak up on us." The soldiers moved fast. They set up tall poles with bright lights. The moon was dark, but soon, the area around the base looked like a daytime football field. The lights were so bright that they hurt to look at. Krull laughed. He thought that light would keep the shadows away. He thought that light meant safety. But they were wrong. High on a ridge, about a mile away from the base, two figures lay flat on the ground. They were covered in gray suits that blended perfectly with the moon dust. They were watching the aliens through high-powered scopes. The man was named Kong. He was the opposite of Jin. While Jin was silent and precise, Kong was a storm of controlled violence. He was physically strong, but he knew how to move without being heard. Next to him lay Mina. She was smaller and very smart. She did not carry a big gun. She carried bags of small, strange devices. "They have a lot of lights," Mina whispered into her radio. Her voice was calm. "They are scared of the dark." "Good," Kong replied. "Let's make them scared of the light, too." Kong checked his weapon. It was a railgun. It did not make a loud boom. It used magnets to fire small metal slugs at incredible speed. It could punch through the heavy Valdorian armor as if it were paper. "I will take out the lights first," Kong said. "You plant the surprises." Mina nodded. She crawled backward, keeping low to the ground. She moved like a snake. She was heading toward the left side of the alien camp. Kong took a deep breath. He aimed his rifle at the first floodlight. He squeezed the trigger. Talk. It was a quiet sound, like a rock hitting a tree. The metal slug flew through the air faster than sound. A second later, the floodlight exploded in a shower of sparks and glass. The aliens on the ground looked up, confused. Kong did not wait. He shifted his aim. Talk. Another light died. Talk. Another one. Within 10 seconds, the bright camp was plunged back into darkness. The only light came from the red glow of the alien engines and the Earth hanging in the sky. "Turn on your night vision," Commander Krull shouted. "Form a circle." The aliens panicked. They were used to fighting in the light. Now, they were blind. They turned on the green vision sensors in their helmets, but it was hard to see clearly. That was when Mina's traps started to go off. She had placed small pressure-sensitive mines in the dust. They were not designed to blow things up. They were designed to make noise and pain. An alien stepped on one. Crack. A small explosion shot metal shrapnel into the soldier's leg. He screamed. It was a terrifying sound in the silence. His friends tried to help him, but they stepped on other mines. More cracks, more screams. The confusion spread. "Stay calm," Krull yelled, swinging his axe at the dark air. "Fire at the ridge. Shoot everything." The aliens fired their green plasma rifles wildly. The beams of energy shot up toward the ridge, hitting nothing but rocks. They were wasting their energy. Kong was already moving. He had left the ridge. He ran down the slope, moving fast but silently. He reached the edge of the camp. An alien guard was standing there, looking the wrong way. Kong did not shoot him. He stepped up behind the guard and pulled out a long, thin knife made of black metal. He slid the knife into the gap in the armor at the alien's neck. The guard fell without a sound. Kong moved to the next one. He was a ghost in red and gold armor. Suddenly, a squad of 4 elite hunter aliens saw him. They roared and charged. They were big and fast. They wanted to crush him. Kong stood his ground. He dropped his rifle and pulled out 2 shorter blades. The first hunter swung a massive fist. Kong ducked under it, spun around, and cut the back of the alien's knee. The alien fell. Kong stabbed his weapon into the alien's back. The other 3 hesitated. They were scared. They had never seen anything move like this. Their enemies usually stood in lines and shot from far away. This human was dancing with them. He was fast, he was close, and he was deadly. "Don't let him escape," one shouted. Kong didn't run. He smiled behind his mask. He picked up his rifle and fired 3 quick shots. Talk. 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 The 3 hunters fell down, their armor smoking. The battle did not last long. The aliens could not fight an enemy they could not see. They could not fight mines that they could not detect. Every time they grouped together, Mina's gas canisters would roll in. The gas made them cough and their eyes burn. They couldn't see their sensors anymore. Commander Krull was the last one left alive. He stood in the middle of the landing zone. His men were scattered on the ground. Some were groaning, some were silent. The dust was settling. The engines of the transport ships hummed, but the pilots were too scared to take off without orders. Krull breathed heavily. He looked at the dark shadows around the base. "Show yourself," he yelled. "Fight me with honor." From the darkness, a figure walked out. It was Kong. He stopped 20 feet away from Krull. Behind him, Mina appeared from the other side. They did not point their weapons at him. They just looked at him. "You came here for a conflict," Kong said. His voice was amplified by his suit, sounding deep and scary. "But you are not ready for this war." Krull raised his axe. "I am not afraid of humans." "You should be," Mina said softly. She pressed a button on her wrist. The small satchel charges she had placed on the landing gear of the transport ships activated. They were not meant to destroy the ships, just to break them. With loud crunches, the landing gear snapped. The huge ships tilted and fell to the ground, useless. They were grounded. Krull looked at the fallen ships. He looked at the hundreds of soldiers on the ground. He realized they were trapped. He realized that if 2 humans could do this to an entire battalion, what could 100 do? Kong and Mina turned their backs on him. They walked back into the dark of the lunar landscape. They did not kill him. Leaving him alive was a worse punishment. He had to go back and tell Vax that the moon was lost. On the gray dust, under the light of the distant Earth, the surviving aliens huddled together in the dark. They did not speak. They listened to the silence, terrified that it might move again. The news of the defeat on the moon reached High Marshal Vax like a physical blow. He sat in his command chair on the iron wheel, his hands gripping the armrests so hard that his knuckles turned white. His face was twisted in anger. He had lost an entire battalion of ground troops. Not to a mighty army, but to a few ghosts in the dark. The humiliation was too much. Vax stood up and paced the bridge. The surviving officers were afraid to look at him. They moved carefully, trying not to make any sudden sounds. "They think they are smart," Vax growled. "They think they can hide in the dark and bite at our heels. They are treating this like a game. But I will show them what war really looks like." He turned to the strategic map. The blue planet of Earth was in the center, surrounded by the red dots of his fleet. "Order the blockade," Vax commanded. "Move every ship into a tight sphere around the planet. No ship leaves, no ship enters. If they try to send a message, we block it." He paused, looking at the planet with hate. "And prepare the planet killer. If they do not surrender in 1 hour, we will fire on their largest city. I will burn their world until they come out and fight like soldiers." As the Valdorian fleet moved to form a deadly cage around Earth, the humans were not idle. They knew what Vax was planning. They did not have a big fleet to stop him, so they had to use the tools they had. They had to use fear. On the hull of a large Valdorian supply ship, a small figure was moving. It was Tay. He was the sniper of the group. He was different from Jin or Kong. He did not like to be in the middle of the fight. He liked to be far away, watching everything. He was patient. He could wait for days without moving if he had to. Tay was currently floating in deep space. He was tethered to a large piece of debris, a broken piece of an old satellite that drifted near the Valdorian fleet. He wore a white suit that blended with the stars. His suit was designed to hide his heat signature, so the alien sensors would think he was just a rock. He looked through the powerful scope of his rifle. The rifle was very long and had a stabilizer attached to it. "Steady," Tay whispered to himself. He was looking at the bridge of a Valdorian destroyer. The ship was only 2 miles away. Through the thick glass, he could see the alien captain and his crew. They were running around, preparing for the bombardment of Earth. They felt safe in their ship. They thought the glass was too thick for bullets to penetrate. But Tay was not using normal bullets. He was using rounds made of depleted uranium, moving at 5 times the speed of sound. Inside the iron will, Rhea was working. She was back in the ventilation shafts, hiding in the shadows. She had a small computer on her wrist that was connected to the Valdorian communication network. She was not trying to control their ships. She was trying to control their minds. She found the frequency for the fleet-wide channel. This channel played music and announcements to keep the crew calm. Rhea smiled. She uploaded a file. Suddenly, on every ship in the Valdorian fleet, the calm music stopped. It was replaced by a terrible sound. It was the sound of the dying aliens on the moon. It was the sound of Commander Krull begging for mercy, mixed with the hissing of Mina's gas and the screams of the wounded. "Help me! I can't see. The shadows are eating us." The sound was loud and clear. It terrified the aliens. They stopped working. They looked around their ships, thinking the monsters were already inside. On the bridge of the Iron Will, Vax's face turned red. "Shut it off!" he roared. "How are they doing this? Stop that noise!" His tech officers typed furiously, but Rhea was too fast. She changed the frequency every few seconds, keeping the noise alive. The fear was spreading. The Valdorians were brave in open battle, but this psychological torture was new to them. Tay saw the panic through his scope. The aliens were distracted. They were looking at their screens, trying to fix the noise. They were not looking out the windows. He took a breath. His heart slowed down. Thwip. The rifle made a soft sound. The bullet traveled through the vacuum of space. It hit the front window of the destroyer. The glass cracked, and the bullet went straight through, hitting the captain in the chest. He fell instantly. The bridge crew screamed. They could not understand what had happened. Their commander was dead, and there was no enemy ship nearby. Tay shifted his aim. He was on the bridge of a battleship. Thwip. Another captain died. Tay worked quickly. He was not just killing random soldiers. He was cutting off the head of the snake. He was targeting the captains, the pilots, and the weapons officers. Without leaders, the fleet was just a mess of metal. While Tay sniped from the dark and Rhea scared the fleet, Jin was inside a different ship. He had boarded a large fuel tanker that was docked with Vax's flagship. This tanker carried the coolant for the main reactor. Jin moved silently through the engine room. It was hot and loud, which was good for him. The noise covered his footsteps. He reached the main cooling pipes. He pulled out a device from his belt. It was a chemical converter. He attached it to the pipe. The machine started to hiss quietly. It was taking the harmless coolant liquid and turning it into a heavy, toxic gas. It was colorless and odorless, but deadly. Jin did not want to blow up the ship. An explosion would be too fast. He wanted something slower. He wanted the gas to fill the ship, so that when the crew breathed, they would fall asleep and never wake up. He set the timer. The gas would release in 10 minutes, right when the fleet was supposed to fire the planet killer. Jin contacted the team. "Everyone, get clear. Phase 2 is starting." On the debris field, Tay packed up his rifle. He had killed 7 high-ranking officers. The fleet was in chaos. They were shouting over the radios, unable to coordinate. Some ships were moving to help the ones that were hit, almost crashing into each other. Inside the flagship, Rhea turned off the scary noises. The silence that followed was even worse. The aliens were terrified to speak. They knew that every time they gathered to fight, they died. Vax was standing on the bridge of the Iron Will. He looked at the chaotic map. His best captains were dead. His crews were panicking. He realized that the humans were not trying to destroy his ships. They were destroying his command structure. They were cutting the strings that made the puppets move. They are not soldiers, Vax whispered, finally understanding. They are germs. They are infecting us. He slammed his hand on the console. It does not matter. Fire the planet killer anyway. Target the Earth capital city. If we are going to die, we will take them with us. The weapons started to charge up. The huge energy beam at the front of the ship began to glow. The power levels rose. The vibration shook the floor. But Jin had planned for this. The tanker next to the flagship was now full of the toxic gas. And the gas was flammable. Very flammable. As the flagship pulled power from the connected ships to fire the weapon, a spark jumped across the docking clamp. It hit the gas inside the tanker. The explosion was not a fireball like in the movies. It was a massive pressure wave. The tanker expanded instantly, crushing the side of the flagship. The shock wave knocked out the shields of Vax's ship. The flagship groaned, metal twisting under the force. The lights flickered and died. Emergency red lights turned on. The planet killer beam stopped charging. It was too dangerous to fire with the ship damaged. High Marshal Vax fell to the floor. The smoke from the explosion began to drift into the bridge. It wasn't the toxic gas, just smoke, but the fear was real. We are helpless, Vax said, looking at the dead screens. We are sitting in the dark, and they are hunting us. He realized then that he had made a terrible mistake. He had asked for a conflict, but he had invited a predator into his home. And the predator was just getting started. The explosion on the supply ship shook the entire fleet. High Marshal Vax fell to his knees on the bridge of the Iron Will. He coughed in the thick smoke that filled the room. His flagship was damaged, and the side of the ship was burning. But the fire in Vax's eyes burned even hotter. He was not defeated yet. He was cornered, and that made him dangerous. He stood up slowly. He looked at the main view screen. The blue Earth was still there, mocking him. He had enough power left for one shot. The planet killer beam was charging. It would take a few more minutes, but it would fire. All ships, protect me. Vax screamed into the command channel. Form a wall around the flagship. I will destroy that planet. The remaining Valdorian ships obeyed. They moved in close, creating a thick shield of metal around Vax's ship. They thought that if they stayed close, the humans could not sneak on board again. They thought safety was in numbers. But they were wrong. The humans were already inside. Deep inside the lowest levels of the Iron Will, a heavy hatch on a waste disposal unit opened. 4 figures climbed out of the pipe. They were covered in grime and slime, but they moved with deadly purpose. They had used the explosion of the supply ship as cover to enter the flagship through the damaged docking ring, then crawled through the ship's sewers to avoid the sensors. Jin was the first one out. He wiped his visor clean. We are in, he said quietly. Rhea, is the path clear? Rhea looked at her wrist computer. Yes. The aliens are all rushing to the engine rooms because of the explosion. The corridors to the bridge are empty. Good, Jin said. He turned to Kong. "It is time." Kong smiled behind his mask. He loved this part. He checked his heavy railgun. He was not going to sneak around anymore. Now, they had to be loud. "Let us go," Jin ordered. The team split up. Kong and Mina stayed in the lower levels, near the engines. Jin and Rhea sprinted toward the elevators that would take them to the bridge at the very top of the ship. Kong walked into a large engineering bay. It was full of Valdorian mechanics working hard to fix the engine damage. They did not see him at first, he was just a shadow in the doorway. Then, he fired. The railgun made a deafening crack sound. The bullet tore through a wall, hitting a fuel pipe. Steam and fire erupted into the room. The aliens screamed. They ran in every direction. "Surprise," Kong said. He walked into the chaos. He did not hide. He stood in the open, firing round after round. The aliens tried to shoot back with their plasma pistols, but Kong was too fast. He moved like a dancer, dodging the green beams. Mina moved with him. She was small and fast, sliding between the confused aliens. She wasn't shooting to kill, she was throwing small spheres. When they hit the ground, they released a thick, purple gas. The aliens breathed it in and immediately collapsed, unable to move. The alarm sirens began to wail. "Warning! Breach in engineering! Warning! Diversion successful," Mina whispered. "Jin, the guards are leaving the bridge." High above them, Jin and Rhea waited in the elevator shaft. They heard the commotion below. They watched on their cameras as the elite guards, the Immortals, ran out of the bridge and headed down the stairs to help the engine room. "Now," Jin said. They forced the elevator doors open and stepped onto the bridge of the Iron Will. The room was circular, with a huge window looking out at space. In the center, High Marshal Vax stood alone at the main console. His back was to them. He was typing furiously, trying to bypass the safety locks on the weapon. Jin and Rhea ran toward him. Suddenly, the door to the private elevator behind Vax opened. A squad of Immortals rushed out. They had not gone to the engine room, they were Vax's personal bodyguards, and they had stayed hidden. "Halt!" the leader of the Immortals roared. They were huge, wearing gold and black armor. They raised their massive energy axes. Vax turned around and saw the humans. He laughed. "You are too late. The guards are here." Jin did not stop. He looked at Rhea. "Take the guards." "I take Vax." Rhea nodded. She pulled two short blades from her belt. She ran straight at the Immortals. The aliens were confused. Usually, enemies ran away from them. They swung their heavy axes. Rhea ducked under the first swing, the blade missing her head by an inch. She stepped inside the guard's reach and stabbed her blade into the gap between his helmet and chest plate. He fell instantly. The other three Immortals roared and attacked together. They were strong, but they were slow. They swung wildly, smashing consoles and chairs. Rhea was never where they looked. She jumped over them, slid under their legs, and slashed at their tendons. It was like watching a wolf fight bears. Jin ran past the fight. He jumped over a console and landed in front of Vax. Vax pulled out his sword. "I will kill you, human." Jin did not draw a weapon. He used his hands. He blocked Vax's sword arm, kicked the alien in the knee, and punched him in the throat. Vax stumbled back, gasping for air. He fell against the console. Jin looked at the screen. The weapon was charging. 90%. 95%. Stop it. Vax choked out. Rhea appeared behind Jin. The last immortal lay dead at her feet. She was bleeding from a cut on her arm, but she did not seem to notice. I can hack it, Rhea said, running to the computer. She typed fast. No good. It has a biolock. Only Vax can fire it. And if I try to force it, it will explode and kill us. Vax laughed, holding his bruised throat. You cannot stop me. Earth will burn. Jin looked at Vax, then at the power cables leading into the console. He realized they did not need to stop the computer. They needed to break the gun. Rhea, step back, Jin said. Jin grabbed a heavy power conduit from the wall. It was sparking with electricity. He ripped it free. Vax's eyes went wide. What are you doing? Jin shoved the live cable into the open control panel where Vax had been typing. There was a blinding flash of white light. The smell of ozone filled the air. Sparks flew everywhere like fireworks. The ship groaned, a deep, terrible sound of metal under stress. The energy from the weapon was not going out the beam. It was going back into the ship. The overload blasted through the shields, shattering the defensive bubble around the flagship. The shock wave hit the nearby Valdorian ships, pushing them away like toys. The lights on the bridge died completely. Only the red emergency lights remained. The humming of the engine stopped. The ship was dead in the water. The silence returned. High Marshal Vax lay on the floor, twitching from the electric shock. He looked up. Jin was standing over him, holding a small knife. Jin looked down at the alien leader. The war was not over, but the flagship was broken. The humans had done the impossible. They had walked into the heart of the enemy's power and crushed it. The bridge of the Iron Will was in ruins. Smoke drifted across the floor, covering the bodies of the fallen immortals. The red emergency lights cast long, dancing shadows on the walls. The only sound was the heavy, rasping breathing of High Marshal Vax. Jin stood over the alien leader. His black nanoweave suit was torn in a few places, revealing cuts underneath, but he stood straight and tall. He did not look like a warrior who had just won a battle. He looked like a man who had finished a job. Beside him, Rhea was wiping her blades on a piece of cloth, her eyes scanning the room for any movement. Behind them, the door to the bridge hissed open. Kang walked in, holding his heavy railgun over his shoulder. Mina followed him, checking a small device in her hand. The ship is dead, Kang said, his voice deep and calm. The engines are offline. The shields are gone. The crew is surrendering or hiding in their rooms. Good, Jin said. He did not look back. He kept his eyes on Vax. Vax tried to push himself up, but his strength was gone. The electric shock had damaged his nerves. He leaned against the broken command console, shaking. He looked at the four humans. They looked so small. They were not big like his soldiers. They did not wear thick, shining armor. Yet, they had defeated his entire fleet. You are monsters, Vax spat. He coughed, and purple blood came from his mouth. You have no honor. You do not fight face to face. You hide in the dark. You use poison. You are not soldiers. Jin tilted his head slightly. He listened to the insult, but it did not make him angry. Honor is for people who can afford to lose, Jin said quietly. We are not here to win trophies. We are here to make you leave. Vax laughed bitterly. You have destroyed my flagship. You have killed my best men. But the rest of the empire is coming. Even if you kill me, they will come. They will burn your planet to ash. We are billions. You are only a few. Jin shook his head slowly. We are not a few. We are many. But we are not like you. We do not stand in lines waiting to die. Jin knelt down so he was face to face with Vax. You came here expecting a war. You wanted explosions and big speeches. You wanted to prove how strong you were. But Earth does not fight for pride. We fight to survive. And when we fight for survival, we do not send soldiers. Mina stepped forward. She held up a small inhaler. It glowed with a soft green light. I released a gas into the ventilation system an hour ago, Mina said softly. It is currently in the air on every ship in your fleet. It is not deadly. Not yet. It sits in your lungs. It is harmless for now. Vax's eyes widened in fear. He looked at the air around him. He realized that every time he took a breath, he was inhaling his own death. What do you want? Vax whispered. The anger was gone. Only fear remained. We want you to go, Jin said simply. Take your fleet and turn around. Go back to your empire and never come back. If you go, we will give you the code for the antidote. The gas will leave your bodies, and you will live. And if we refuse? Vax asked. Then you die, Jin said. Your ships will stop working. Your crews will fall asleep and never wake up. And your empire will know that the little blue planet is not a place to conquer. It is a place to avoid. Jin stood up and walked to the large window. He looked out at the stars. The debris from the battle was floating in the void. He looked at the other Valdorian ships. They were drifting, helpless. The choice is yours, High Marshal, Jin said. You can have your honor and die, or you can swallow your pride and live. Vax looked at the four humans. He thought about the glory he thought he would have. He thought about the stories he would tell. None of that mattered now. He was dying. His fleet was dying. The humans had beaten him without mercy. He looked at the stars, too. He realized that space was very big, and very dark. And in that dark, humans were the best hunters. Call your ship, Vax said to Rhea. Give me the frequency. Rhea typed into her wrist computer. A moment later, the main screen on the bridge flickered back to life. It showed the bridge of the other battleships. The captains were waiting, terrified. They saw Vax on his knees, alive but defeated. High Marshal, one captain asked. Orders. Vax took a deep breath. It hurt. All ships, he said, his voice shaking. Power down weapons. Turn around. Set course for home. We are leaving. The captains looked at each other. They could not believe it. But they saw the humans standing behind their leader. They saw the dead guards on the floor. They knew the truth. Yes, High Marshal, the captain said. We are retreating. Slowly, one by one, the massive golden ships turned their noses away from Earth. Their engines glowed, and they began to move. They left the silence of the Sol system. They fled into the deep dark, running from the shadows. Jin watched them go until they were just tiny specks of light. We won, Kong said. He sounded surprised. Jin nodded. Yes. What do we do now? Rhea asked. She was cleaning the cut on her arm. Jin looked at his team. They were dirty, tired, and bloody. But they were standing. They had saved their world without a single army. We send the code for the antidote, Jin said. Then we go home. Jin typed the code into the console and sent it to the retreating fleet. Then, he turned and walked to the door of the bridge. He did not look back at Vex. The team walked through the empty hallways of the dead ship. They did not speak. They did not cheer. They were professionals. They had done their job. They reached their small, black shuttle. It was still hidden in the airlock. They climbed inside and strapped themselves into the seats. Mina started the engine. The shuttle lifted off, drifting away from the iron will. As they flew toward the blue planet, Jin looked out the window. The Earth looked so peaceful from up here. The clouds were white, and the oceans were deep blue. It looked like a gentle place. But Jin knew the truth. The humans who lived down there were dangerous when they were pushed. They had learned to fight in the dark, in the mud, and in the shadows. They were not built for golden palaces or grand speeches. They were survivors. Did they learn? Tay asked from the back seat. He had joined them on the shuttle while they were leaving. He was cleaning his sniper scope. I hope so, Jin said. I hope the galaxy learns that Earth is not a target. And if they come back, Rhea asked. And if the Empire sends a bigger fleet? Jin looked at the planet growing larger in the window. He saw the lights of the cities on the night side. He saw the millions of people sleeping safely in their beds. Then we will be waiting, Jin said. And next time, we won't be so nice. The shuttle entered the atmosphere. The heat shield glowed red as they burned through the sky. They dropped toward the surface, disappearing into the clouds. Up in space, the silence returned. But the silence was different now. It was not the silence of peace. It was the silence of a warning. The rest of the universe was watching. They had seen the soldiers of the Empire run away. And they knew that Earth was not a planet of sheep. It was a planet of wolves. And for now, the wolves were sleeping, guarding their home in the dark. The end.